On this episode of Casual Mode, Rantamania's running wild, brother. Gaijin Goomba uploaded a video discussing sexuality and violence in video games. We're going to give our takes on that. Aaron Hernandez found guilty of all charges. We're going to talk about that, as well as the NBA playoffs, dopes rushing the ring in London, and as always, silly news and dumb tweets. It's episode 10 of Casual Mode, and it starts right now.
The following is a presentation of FNX Network, fnx.network.
It's Casual Mode with Jeremy and David, episode 10 for April 20th, 2015, Rantamania. Hello everybody and welcome to Casual Mode, the podcast for geeks of all trades and masters of none. I am your host Jeremy, and alongside with me is of course my little brother by spirit, my tag team partner, and my best friend, David.
I'm tired, Jeremy.
It's been a real busy week for you.
Very. And you know what? I think that the video game section is going to be mostly about me talking about the games that I played, because I played a lot of games, and I currently am playing a lot of games now.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Well, we do also have a very, very interesting conversation that we're going to have about a really big hot button issue over in the video game section. In fact, as you probably have noticed by listening to the title sequence, this is definitely Rantamania here.
Yeah, this is not the only rant that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a huge rant down at the silly news story section with a story that's not more kind of revolting to me than silly, but all right, it's news, whatever, let's go with it.
Yeah, and admittedly, this is probably going to be a little heavier episode as far as our hot takes go.
Yeah, well, anyways, let's not think about that right now. I got some good news for you.
What's that?
Well, on Sunday, I believe it's Sunday, I registered casualmodepodcast.com.
This would be Sunday the 12th, by the way.
Correct. So we now have casualmodepodcast.com, and I had just confirmed us and verified us for the year under the ICANN registration thingy that they do over there. So yes, you can now catch us on the internet, everyone, at casualmodepodcast.com, and there is a list of all of our social networks that we are a part of.
Yep, easy way to get a hold of us, and that's actually a pretty good way to celebrate episode number 10, because while for most things on the internet, episode number 10 usually isn't all that great of a deal, for me, personally speaking, it is, because this means now that Casual Mode has lasted just about as long as anything else I've tried to do on a regular basis.
Which means on the next episode, I'm going to have to bring another surprise for you, and maybe some party hats. Yeah, it's party hats.
Have a party horn for episode number 11.
Yeah, definitely, because it will then become the longest, and episode 11 is definitely coming, so we know now for sure that Casual Mode is your longest project ever, and my second longest project ever.
Personal source of pride there. Speaking of personal sources of pride, also coming this coming weekend on Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th, I'm going to be going to Oklahoma City again. Whether or not I'll be able to shoot a vlog for that, I have no idea. But the reason why I'm going is I'm going with my father and my sister to run in the Oklahoma City Memorial Run on the 26th. They will be running a half marathon. I will be running a 5K, and this will be the second year in a row that I have done this. It is to support the Oklahoma City Bombing Memorial Museum. And of course, it's a run that starts right in front of the Memorial Museum, goes all around downtown Oklahoma City, including through Bricktown, some of the places which I actually showed you in the vlog. And getting to run last year in it was just an amazing experience, because it's become one of the big attractions for runners around not just from the U.S. but around the world, because of the cause of it, and just because of being the beautiful area of Bricktown that you get to run through. This is also going to be a very, very special one because this year we will be commemorating the 20th anniversary of this unfortunate event. In fact, on Sunday the 19th, it will have been 20 years since those two dumbasses decided to blow up the Murrah building.
I'm getting old.
Yeah, but I will be there running with my father and my sister, though not running the same race unless I get lost, which has happened before. Has actually happened before during a 5K. I have actually gotten lost before, but not on this particular one because they actually marked the pathways really, really well. Last year they had like giant stick figures with signs pointing where you needed to go. So I didn't miss any of my turns. So yeah, if you are in the Oklahoma City area, I know it will be televised. It usually is. I believe all the news stations usually air it as well. Of course, they mostly follow the leaders, which I'm definitely not going to be. But they, you'll just get to see this like huge mass of humanity leaving out from around near the memorial and just running off and fanning out as the pack separates out. There's also relay going on, so there will be relay teams running there. Of course, there's a full marathon, which is the main attraction. The half marathon, which my sister and dad will be running. The 5K, which I will be running. There's also a marathon for wheelchairs.
Nice. And, how long is that one?
It is a full marathon for people who are in wheelchairs. Instead of working their legs and increasing the power in their legs for these runs, they increase the power in their arms so that they can work the wheels. Actually, a fun thing, one other fun note from last year, and it's probably going to happen again this year, there are actually some relay teams from various firefighter stations that run in full firefighter gear. And there are also, I believe, some soldiers who ran in full BDUs, their uniforms.
I can see soldiers doing that. Firefighters, wow, I'm actually impressed. But
yeah, because that's like 50 pounds worth of gear you're running with, and even in late April in Oklahoma, it can get a little toasty. It can get it can get up to the 80s. I have no idea what the weather's going to be at this point, but if it's anything like last year, while I was sitting there waiting, we'd had a thunderstorm that actually delayed the start of the race beforehand.
Well, that sucks.
And in fact, at some point they even had us all separate into various different parking garages around the area to keep us safe because it was a storm that possibly could have been a tornado, could have been tornadic. So they had us sit and wait there until it abated enough and the lightning calmed down that they were allowed to start the race. But we did get to run the race, and by the time the race was over, sun was shining. It was an absolutely beautiful day. Got pretty warm, got up toward 80. So, that kind of weather with full 50 pounds worth of fighter gear to run 26.2 miles in that, or even a portion of that in that much weight, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more hardcore than ECW. All right. Well, anyway, what's happening on the show today. We've Of course, we did give you the blatant shilling for our website and all the social media stuff therein contained. Of course, we are still found on the FNX network. Just because we've got our own website doesn't mean we're leaving them, you know. Brothers Oostendorp, they're our boys. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get started talking about video games. As always, we start by telling y'all what we're playing. So, David, get us started.
Alrighty, have been playing Pokemon Omega Ruby, trying to finish the second of those games. Dragon Ball Xenoverse, a little bit of that, a little bit of Five Nights at Freddy's, and then on my mobile phone, I have been playing a crap load of idle games. I have started to learn that I am actually very much addicted to these things. I want to start programming one of these. Games like Adventure Capitalist is a lot of fun. That's one where basically you are running a bunch of businesses, and all you're basically doing is clicking a button. If only capitalism were that easy.
Indeed.
Also, I have been playing Bitcoin Billionaire. This is the game where you are trying to earn 1 billion Bitcoin, which, by the way, if any of you know about the history of what Bitcoin's supposed to be, that's probably never going to happen. But it's a nice little fantasy game nonetheless. Also, I have been playing Doge Miner again, even though it's starting to bore me a little bit with all the fancy stuff of these two new ones. And then something called Gold Miner, I have to check on my mobile phone, but it's a very, very advanced game, and it drains the hell out of my battery life. I mean, it's just completely just drains it. And finally, Tap Titans, which is not really an idle game. It's more just you just tap to attack a monsters, and the monsters are ever increasing in life points. But overall, yeah, it's pretty much just like an idle game. It's just that you tap the buttons, except, you are idle with them. I'm getting hooked on these things. I gotta program one of these, Jeremy. Seriously.
For my part, of course, I've been playing Pokemon Shuffle and Pokemon Rumble World. A little bit of the Street Pass Me Plaza. I play that every now and again. Which, by the way, there are a couple of the two new games announced in the Nintendo Direct are out as of this podcast, actually as of the recording date of this podcast, which is April the 17th. They are out with an update on Street Pass Plaza, so you can go ahead and get those. A little bit of Fire Emblem, a little bit of Metroid Fusion, and I also played a little Mario Golf Advance Tour on the Virtual Console on my Wii U. One of the big ones, though, that I've been doing is I actually played a little bit of Smash Brothers for the first time in a while, and the reason why is because since I have it both on the Wii U and on the 3DS, and I had registered them with Club Nintendo, they already sent out the download codes for Mewtwo. And also, there has been an update for the new DLC clothing options for your Miis. So all that has come out. So I have been trying out Mewtwo. I actually like the fact that one of the alternate colors kind of looks a little reminiscent of Shadow Lugia from Pokemon XD, the GameCube title. I know it's not exactly the same colors as Shadow Lugia. It's a little more black than really, really dark purple. But even so, the colors to me kind of are reminiscent of Shadow Lugia, so I affectionately refer to that alternate color as Shadow Mewtwo. And it looks awesome. The major thing I've been playing, though, has been, of course, Star Trek Online. Allison Bella Ray Olsen, Alvareo, is now a captain, level 35 as of the recording of this podcast. Making our way towards Admiral. Once I do that, the stable time loop will be closed. When just before her promotion to captain, she actually managed to get one ship, an ambassador class ship, which became the Dark Star C, But she also, upon her promotion, got a Defiant class ship, which, in a nice little shout out to science fiction reviewer SF Debris, I have nicknamed the USS BSMF-PH, which is short for Ben Sisko's motherfucking pimp hand. Actually, talking about Star Trek Online segues into our new releases segment quite perfectly, because on April 20th, Star Trek Online is going to release a glut of new content that they refer to as Season 10, which will be coming out of the Delta Rising, which is what they have been doing. So if you have not already made a Delta recruit for Star Trek Online, or if you'd been thinking about getting into Star Trek Online and were wanting to, had heard about it but never really had gotten a chance to get into it, now is the time. Delta recruits get a lot of perks. There's already a lot of story missions that you can go through, featured episodes and such, that you can go through from all involving all different eras from Next Generation, and even some cameos from characters from the original series in some of the missions, all the way up through Voyager, that are set in that little universe, because this Star Trek Online takes place in a post-Voyager Federation. It's not the reboot era. It's in the original era from the original series, or if you really want to go back that far, from Enterprise forward. It takes place in that universe, and it's well after the events of Voyager. So, yeah, I maintain that it's a really, really fun game, and now is a good time, if you haven't thought about it, to get into it, because there's a good mix of ship combat and ground combat. Of course, you got away team missions that you can take your characters onto. There's various different ships with various different strengths and weaknesses that you can use. I've primarily been using the Ben Sisko's motherfucking pimp hand as of late instead of the Dark Star C, mostly because, well, I like the Defiant class.
Well, of course, Jeremy. You gotta keep the pimp hand strong.
Ben Sisko is the only captain in Starfleet canon to come face to face with Q one time and never have Q return. Mostly because he's the only one to punch Q out. You punch a god out and they don't ever come back. That's how you know you got some mad respect going for you.
Nice.
Other new releases, well, they're not really new releases, because there are some newer games that I'm not familiar with that are coming out this next week, but there are some re-releases that you need to know about. If anyone out there is familiar with the game Goat Simulator, it is coming to Xbox One actually on the 17th, so on this recording day. If you haven't heard about Goat Simulator, well, it's pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. You play a goat. You do goat-type things. You run around being a goat. Occasionally, you can run around being a satanic goat. And on the 21st, for PS4, PS3, and Vita, Shovel Knight is finally coming to Sony-related devices. So, those of you who haven't already gotten to play Shovel Knight, and it's very retro, 8-bit, kind of Mega Man, Castlevania stylishness of coolness. I have not got to play it, but I have seen people play through it, and it looks like a really amazing game. So, finally, if you, for some reason, you don't have a Nintendo console, or even the Xbox One, or, you haven't gotten it on Steam, but you have a PlayStation console, get thee to the Sony store right now. Get thee to the PlayStation store right now. Get Shovel Knight, especially if you were a fan of, like Mega Man and Castlevania and Metroid and classic, side-scrolling platformers from way, way back in the day. You're going to love this game.
Yeah.
Before we get into the real heavy stuff, we do have some interesting news for you. The next Pokemon movie has been announced, and of course, there are events to go with that. And it involves the legendary Pokemon known as Hoopa, which, if you're anything like me, you probably didn't know even existed until Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. They're also alongside that, alongside the new movie, is revealed Hoopa's alternate form, because all the major legendaries have to have alternate forms now, which is Hoopa Unbound form. If you've seen Hoopa before, you've probably seen it with rings around it and holding a ring. That's referred to as its confined state. Hoopa Unbound using an item called the Prison Bottle. You can unbind Hoopa, basically kind of like a genie, and it becomes its unbound state. Its confined state is Psychic Ghost. Its unbound state is Psychic Dark type. And its confined state is referred to as the Mischief Pokemon.
Right.
And this definitely tells the origins of this particular Pokemon. When it's in its unbound state, its species name is the Jin Pokemon.
By the way, for people who are in Major League Pokemon, they have been, many of them have been using Hoopa for quite some time now. So,
yeah, I didn't even know Hoopa existed until Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, so I have no idea how to even get confined Hoopa, let alone. But there is going to be an event. Right now, it's only been announced at the Japanese movie releases that will distribute Pokemon with some special legendaries with hidden abilities and holding various different interesting items. Because apparently part of the plot of this coming movie, which is labeled Hoopa and the Clash of Ages, in English at least, will be involving Hoopa spawning a bunch of legends, including the event Pokemon are going to be Dialga, or Dialga, however that's pronounced, Dialga, I think, with the moves Metal Burst, Overheat, its signature move Roar of Time, and Flash Cannon, holding an Adamant Orb. Palkia, with the moves Earth Power, Aura Sphere, its signature move Spatial Rend, and Hydro Pump, holding a Lustrous Orb. Giratina with the moves Aura Sphere, Draco Meteor, its signature move Shadow Force, and Iron Head, holding the Greasius Orb, which, of course, if I remember correctly, turns it into its origin form.
correct.
Yeah, Groudon with Fire Punch, Solar Beam, Hammer Arm, and Rock Slide, holding a Choice Band, because, of course, they're not going to put out another Red Orb or Blue Orb, since if you're playing Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, you already have those items, probably. Kyogre with Water Spout, Thunder, Sheer Cold, and Ice Beam, holding a Choice Scarf. And Kyurem with Glaciate, Scary Face, Draco Meteor, Iron Head, and holding a Life Orb. Players who take tickets for the 18th movie to certain stores in Japan will receive one of those. The period for this will be June the 20th through August the 31st. No word yet on whether anything like this is going to come for North America, but just wanted to let you know that Hoopa Unbound is coming, and when the movie comes, likely there is going to be a event alongside it with those Pokemon.
And now, speaking of Pokemon, Major League Pokemon news. It's official. ML Pokemon 7 has been confirmed for, basically when this thing gets brought out, the 20th of April. ML Pokemon 7! Ditto Express, it's everything you want it to be. And it is going to be just one match on the card. It is a group war between two regions, the Zircon region, which is the host region of Major League Pokemon, taking on the Pure Battle region. It will be a 10-on-10, quote-unquote, clan war rules. I believe it is elimination rules. Just going to name the list of the people who are going to be in this special. There are a lot of them. Sorry if this takes up so much time.
It's all right.
But here is who is confirmed so far for the Major League Pokemon 7 special event. Representing the Pure Battle region, Alex Robinson, Eric Pope, Jason Pennyworth, Drajan Parminutin, I hope I am not butchering that one, Alan Pacheco, Gary Stout, and Chubbs Rodart. Representing the Zircon region, Justin Salidi, Wayne Trimnall, Victoria Latawiak, I hope I'm not butchering that one either, I'm sorry Victoria, good friend of mine, Dylan Kisaragi, Patrick Ilg, Alex Carbo, Alex Cohen, and Matthew Rivera. That's 8 from Zircon, 2 more will be confirmed for the Zircon region, and 3 more will be confirmed for the Pure Battle region. It is ML Pokemon 7, Ditto Express, it's everything you want it to be. Live, April 20th, that Facebook group event, just look it up somewhere. Yeah, it's live, that's all you really need to know. And
we also, I believe, you have another announcement related to Major League Pokemon.
Yes, well, other than the fact that we have 4 people now challenging the Elite Four series. Matthew Rivera, who is currently down 2-1 right now. Dylan Maldonado is down 2-0. Alex Cohen has yet to start his Elite Four series, and Wayne Trimnall, who is still only up 1-0. We have Alex Cohen will be interviewing with us, talking about Major League Pokemon and his trek into the Elite Four series. And of course, I want to talk about his battle in, I believe it was ML Pokemon 4, A Tale of Two Alexes, against Alex Carbo. That one was quite the epic battle where Alex Cohen almost took the title from Alex Carbo.
And also, because Major League Pokemon is wanting to expand out beyond the bounds merely of its Facebook group, for some people who don't have Facebook, like me, they also have a forum now.
Yeah, well, it's currently just a forum, but we do have our own .com site now. You can check us out on mlpkmn.com. mlpkmn.com. It'll take you straight to the forum. So come check us out and say hi, and you can all now register for World Cup 2 Arrival. That is coming up on June 5th. And it will last for a whole month. It's June 5th to July 3rd. Where the winner will become the Major League Pokemon champion. It'll be the Interleague Championship, as the current ML Pokemon title, as is, will be demoted to the Zircon Region Championship. So yes, Major League Pokemon is going to go Interleague, you could say.
And now on to the crux of things here in the video games section. This is a pretty big topic to take on. And this was actually inspired by someone I follow on YouTube who goes by Gaijin Goomba. He's part of the game theorist staple of YouTubers. He's got his show there, Gaijin Goomba's Game Exchange, and he also has a shorter one called Culture Shock, where he talks about various things in games related to various different cultures, particularly Japanese culture, but he also goes into other various different cultures and mythological references. But recently, he came across this thing that Twitch has decided to change, where with some tournaments are for Dead or Alive 5 are actually banning certain alternate costumes for some of the characters, female characters, some of which are rather revealing, some of which are actually less revealing than their standard attire. But also, Twitch had mentioned specifically this one game. I can't remember the name of it. Zengrin Kagura Estival Versus, I believe the name was off the top of my head, that is an action RPG, but it's got some very fan servicey type anime-ish stuff in it.
Right.
And for a while, Twitch was actually saying, "Well, don't stream this. I'm not going to let it stream this because of the sexualized content of it, even though you can kind of switch it between being a little more perverted or a little less perverted, depending on how settings are set up." And then they eventually backtracked and said, "Well, you can stream this, but just don't make this fan servicey type stuff the focus of your streams," which is kind of hard when you've got a game that's pretty much focused on the fan service. And he brought up an interesting point. You have all these games that can be streamed with very little problem, that have really, really, really huge amounts of violence. You've got like the Call of Duties or the Battlefields, or even Mortal Kombat 10, which came out recently. No one ever bothers with that. And he also mentioned the one game, Hatred, that was on Steam Greenlight, had gotten pulled because it basically was about the most sociopathic person on the world killing pretty much anyone who got in his way in various grueling, horrifying ways. But eventually that pull got retracted with an apology from Gabe Newell himself. And the question is, how is it that when it comes to video games, we're so permissive regarding violence, but sexuality is pretty much, for lack of a better word, verboten? All the dumb, violent shit you can do in Grand Theft Auto, and what has caused the most controversy in Grand Theft Auto's history? The San Andreas hot coffee mod. And it got me to thinking about this, because, full disclosure, when I'm not that big on gratuitous violence or gratuitous sexuality. In fact, back in my e-wrestling days, I actually had rules telling people, "Oi, when you're doing promos, scale back on that shit," because we had some people doing insane shit. And I'm sorry for this little rabbit trail here, but for instance, we had this one guy who actually did a promo with, and I swear to God, I am not making this up, bloodthirsty vampire Furbies.
Hey, I liked that one. You saw my response to that one.
As if those things were not creepy enough, but I digress.
Oh, come on. We made a good cooking show out of it.
But anyway...
By the way, if anyone wants any Furby meat, email me, please. It's been overstocked for like 10 years. We need to get rid of it.
But anyway,
no one wants any Furby anymore, let alone Furby meat.
But anyway, you're getting me sidetracked here, bro.
I promise it isn't rotten.
You're getting me sidetracked here, bro. And
free Furby meat.
Anyway,
it's juicy.
Can I make my point here, please?
Furby meat. Furby meat.
I'm trying to be all serious and make a point here, bro.
Okay, fine.
My best friend is a dork, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I am, and I am also an asshole.
Anyway, I am a person who doesn't like gratuitous violence or gratuitous sexuality. So, like I said, I'm not one to play games like Grand Theft Auto. Games like Grand Theft Auto, honestly, if games like that disappeared off the market, I would not be sad, because I don't like that stuff, and not out of this, misguided kind of, it's making people more violent and shit like that. Just, you can say, maybe I'm a little more squeamish than some people, or you can. I think we can do better than that, and I think we can make games fun without making them really, really violent or really sexualized. But Gaijin Gooba is right. There is that disconnect there. There is that double standard. And it's by no means fair. I mean, I would rather have less of both, but I would prefer to have them at an equal amount no matter what the level. If we are going to celebrate, violence in video games, why can't we celebrate sexuality? I mean, it's not like we don't have an ESRB rating in the US for adult games. We have it. Certain retailers won't sell games that are rated AO, but that's on the businesses. That's capitalism for you. That's the free market for you. But and really, it reminded me of when Smash 4 started coming out and all the details of it came out, and of course one of the big things was that Sheik and Zelda and Zero Suit Samus and Various Suit Samus were two different characters, and people looked at the design for Zero Suit Samus with her Zero Suit, and especially her alternate attire where it's a crop top and shorts, and of course the infamous rocket heels, and they got all infuriated because this is our Samus, and you're making her all sexualized and stuff. And okay, for one thing, the crop top and shorts actually looks a lot more decent than her skin tight Zero Suit. For one thing, but even discounting that, and this part of it actually was brought on by a video Screw Attack did about this particular great moment in gaming. When Metroid first came out, and people first found out by beating it in 3 hours or less that Samus was in fact female, because the developers just up and decided, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the character was female all along? Not really anything ground shaking, just a kind of a wouldn't it be cool thing that ended up being one of the most ground shaking moments in gaming. But at the time, that reveal was just like, whoa, Samus is a chick. Awesome. Let's play it again. And that was the crux of it back then, because back then the people first playing it were kids. We hadn't yet been born into society's ideas of gender roles and such. We hadn't had that completely beaten into us quite yet. We're just sitting there playing a fun game, and at the end of it, we find out we've been playing as a chick all along. We're like, okay, girl kicks ass. And even in the Super Metroid era, it wasn't that big a deal. By that time, Sarah Aaron, being female, was an accepted part. There were accompanying mangas giving her backstory out there. It wasn't really this really, really ground-shaking thing, because back then we didn't really know any better. We didn't have any sense of, how much patriarchy really invades society. It was just, oh, that's cool. But then by the time you started getting into Metroid Fusion and later, is really about the time that it finally started to hit us, because a lot of us gamers started growing up. Once society's expectations finally started crashing down on us, we realized how big of a deal it was that one of the founding members of gaming, one of the founding video game characters of the modern video game era was a female protagonist. It was at that point it finally started to hit us. And I think at that point really was about the time that people started, for lack of a better word, and I hate this phraseology because of all the connotations that it gives, but I have no better way to say it than this. That is when people started claiming her as their own. Myself included, admittedly. Because, admittedly, Samus did not really become one of my favorite video game characters until the historical significance of her came in. But even then, for my own part, it's been like, okay, I respect her. I respect her because, you know, I play Super Smash Brothers, you know, and there she is, one of the first 8 characters that you can play alongside the legends Mario and Donkey Kong and Pikachu and Link, you know, alongside legends of gaming. She's there at the forefront right from the beginning for you to select. And then Other M came out. And admittedly, from what I saw of the gameplay, I've never actually gotten to play the game myself. But from what I've seen of the gameplay, it doesn't look like that bad of a game. But it was the cutscenes, really, that got people all riled up. And rightfully so, because it took this one little plot line from Metroid Fusion. That is, her having spent some time with the Galactic Army under a CO named Adam. Expanded on it, but in a very bad way. It made her kind of a shell-shocked veteran with daddy issues, for lack of a better phrase. And yeah, that was a problem. Unfortunately, it was also a problem on the other side of things because that was about the moment that those people who had claimed her really started to fight. Some of it for good ways, because, yeah, that's not good characterization for any character, let alone one of the icons of gaming. But it also kind of got to creepy levels there because it was them really not treating Samus with respect as a soldier, which honestly is more important than her gender.
Well, you know, sex kind of sells.
And admittedly, it was developed by Team Ninja, but even so, I don't think Team Ninja deserves all the blame for that. Whoever was writing it, I don't think necessarily may have been a part of. I don't know exactly the details, but I don't think Team Ninja deserves entirely the blame for it because I don't know who wrote it. I don't know if it was someone on Team Ninja or someone else entirely. And then, of course, you move forward to Smash Brothers, and you have that furor over Zero Suit's outfit and her rocket heels. And at that point, I'm like, okay, people, you just gotta stop. Because really, you are doing the opposite now of what you think you're doing. By this point, it has been so established that Salmon is a woman that, honestly, the fact that her femininity is being more celebrated by giving her the Zero Suit, giving her missions in Metroid Zero mission, where she goes around in the Zero Suit, and by introducing the Zero Suit as a fighter in Brawl, and then as an individual fighter in Smash 4, that it was really Nintendo finally realizing Samus's femininity and celebrating it in a way that made her look just as badass outside of the suit as in it. So when you get all furious and rage-filled about Zero Suit Samus and the things that happened to her, you're really diminishing Samus, because I would like to remind you, yes, the Varia suit is a very powerful piece of technology. But if Samus were not inside it, using it with her mind in logical ways, honed by her military training and by the training given to her by the Chozo as a child, that suit would just be a hunk of metal. Yes, the suit is awesome, but it is the woman inside that makes the suit, not the other way around. And when she takes off that suit, she fights differently than she does in the suit, because, for one thing, she doesn't have the environmental protections that the Varia suit gives her.
I'm assuming she's also a lot speedier.
She's speedier, and she may not hit as hard, but she is as viable of a character. In fact, tier-wise, in Smash Bros. Brawl, I believe, or tier-wise rather, in Smash Bros. 4, I believe Zero Suit Samus is actually higher tier than Samus, and that's even accounting for the recent patch doing some rebalancing. I mean, you look back at the tournament that they had at E3, Zero Suit Samus hardcore. And honestly, I think when they did that, they were showing that all of the victories that Samus has had, maybe she has had the suit to help her get those, but ultimately what has gotten her there has been not what's behind the Zero suit, but what's underneath her blonde hair. And I'm not referring to her scalp. I'm referring a little deeper. Her brains and her heart, her soldier instincts and her knowledge base have combined to make her the soldier that she is, inside the suit or outside the suit. And if you can't see that, if you can't recognize that she is just as great in her more, for lack of a better phrase, beautiful Zero suit form as she is inside the armor, then you're the problem. You're as big of a problem as anyone who, quote-unquote, lusts after her.
I never found video game characters to be attractive in any real way. I think this was much of the reason why a lot of the guys would ogle over animes like Sailor Moon and stuff, and for me, I'm just not really into that stuff because...
Well, I can appreciate some of these video game characters and anime characters aesthetically. Not in creepy ways, but I can admire that they are legitimately beautiful people. And truth be told, Zero Suit Samus is very beautiful. She's also very, very deadly. And honestly, that's more why I like her than her beauty.
Yeah, because you happen to like people who kick your ass.
We'll get into more of that in the section.
I'm going to mute my microphone for that one.
But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that's my response. I understand where Gaijin Guba is coming from, and like I said, personally, I don't care much for sex or violence myself. It's just not the way I'm wired. But, if you are going to celebrate one and denounce the other, that is most definitely a double standard. And
I'm assuming you're not talking about the type of violence like in the olden days of Wolfenstein 3D where they just show blood after you shoot someone. And the soldier just takes 3 sprites where they fall down and pretty much die, right? We're talking about like Mortal Kombat 3D style.
And keep in mind, even that kind of violence back then was considered pretty racy back then.
Only because everyone was just all big on this conservative moral bullcrap. We had the moral majority back then, which, by the way...
And by the way, part of the reason the ESRB exists, in fact, if I remember correctly, one of the primary reasons that the ESRB exists was a game that did not have any heavily violent content, but Night Trap because of some scenes involving ladies not, like naked or anything, or even in lingerie, but just in, plain nightgowns. People got freaked out over that.
Yeah, them, and I believe the original Mortal Kombat as well.
Yeah, but Mortal Kombat did help there too. But the biggest furor over there was not so much over Mortal Kombat and its violence, but oh my God, we have attractive ladies in nightgowns that you can spy on and that are being stalked by dudes. Oh no.
It was a different time. It was a very different time, especially considering that, back during the Atari days, when anyone could make an Atari game, there were a shitload of Atari porn games, the most infamous of them all being Custer's Revenge. And
for this Night Trap game, we're talking.
A lot of people saw these games. The thing is, a lot of people saw these games as, ways for people to just kind of, as basically instruments of evil back then. I know, I was a gamer in the 90s. I remember the stigma that came with being a gamer. It was all about going to church.
Is that, some 20 odd years ago, the game that basically creates the ESRB, it mostly was one that supposedly was racy rather than one was violent. And here we are in 2015, and not a goddamn bloody thing has changed. And yes, I mean bloody in the British sense. It's just... And the thing is, I know I'm not the only person who feels like this, because when I posted a comment to the effect of the stuff I just said, shorter format, of course, on Twitter, I got a lot of likes and a lot of people saying, yeah, I understand you completely. You're spot on, dude. So I know I'm not the only person who feels the way that I do. I know I'm not alone in this, and obviously, by extension, Gaijin Kuba's not alone in this either. I mean, there are some games that I bought. There was this one game that I bought that I played called Conception 2. That's also got a subtitle, but I forget what it is. And it is a T-rated game. It is a T-rated game. It's not rated M. But the whole conceit of it is that your main character is a guy who possesses this high degree of magical ability, read sperm count, who is literally called God's gift to women, and is not only expected, but encouraged to make star children, have babies, with as many cute, attractive girls as possible. So basically, exactly what it says on the tin. Including, there's anime style, fan servicey transformation sequences. Yes, even for the guy main character. But especially for the female companions. And when they go to make these magical star children, they're bathed in light. They're bathed in light as if they are nude, and this kind of romantic-ish music starts playing, and I'm like, oh, they're totally not fucking. Well, I mean, they're magic fucking, but they're not actually fucking. I played that game for like all of 2 days, and then I was like, I can't justify playing this, because it's just, it makes me uncomfortable. Because I mean, just the fact that the guy is literally called God's gift, as in God's gift to women, kind of, it's just something about the very concept of that game was like, yeah, I'm gonna put that away. Anyway,
I have much to say. I really don't have much more to say about this.
Many rants out of the way, but we will have many more in the the sports section. And that is coming up right now. First off on the sports, we have the big news of the past week. For some time now, former Patriots star Aaron Hernandez was involved in a trial for first-degree murder of someone he knew by the name of Odin Lloyd. As of this week, the trial finally came to its verdict, and he was found guilty on all charges related to the case. First-degree murder? Guilty. Carrying firearm without a license? Guilty. Carrying large-capacity firearm? 2 counts. Guilty on both. Possession of ammunition without an ID card? Guilty. And possession of firearm without the ID card? Also guilty. But of course, the big one is the first-degree murder, which in the state of Massachusetts has a mandatory sentence of life in prison, no parole.
Ouch.
And the weird thing is that looking towards the end of the case, it looked as if the trial may have been going in the defense's case, or the defense's favor rather, because there was no, for lack of a better phrase, smoking gun. All the evidence appeared to be circumstantial, but even in the cases of circumstantial evidence, sometimes circumstantial evidence can really say a lot.
Yes.
So, and in this case, all the evidence pointed to the fact that Hernandez was with Odin Lloyd at the time he was killed. It does not necessarily say the evidence did not necessarily say that he did definitely shoot it, but apparently the evidence was enough that the jury believed that he did. And the defense admitted that Hernandez was at the scene of the killing, which I guess, again, was enough for the jury. And of course, to make matters even worse, he's also awaiting murder charges on a drive-by shooting in which he is accused of gunning down 2 men over a spilled drink at a nightclub. Bottom line, he was an All-American out of Florida, drafted in the 4th round by the Patriots in 2010. Before all this, had signed a contract worth $40 million, got to play with arguably the best quarterback in an NFL today, with arguably one of the greatest coaches in the NFL today, if not ever.
Well, then again, he did do a lot of cheating stuff, but that's beside the point.
That's why I said arguably. And he threw it all away.
Well, stupid people do stupid things. That's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, and really, according to this news, what really was the crux for the decision by the jury was testimony by Patriots owner Robert Kraft. Kraft testified that Hernandez told him he was innocent when asked whether he was involved in the June 2003 murder. Kraft was also asked about the events of the days of June 19th, 2 days after the killing. Patriots owner said he found Hernandez in a weight room working out at the team's facility and pulled him into an adjacent office for a private talk. He said he was not involved, Kraft said. That he was innocent, and he hoped that the time of the murder incident came out. He hoped that the time of the murder incident came out because he said he was in a club. Well, obviously that turned out to not be the case, so apparently Hernandez lied to Robert Kraft. And that was the testimony that put this boy away for the rest of his life with no parole because he couldn't keep the gun holstered. And that's not even a double entendre or anything. So, anyway, a sad end to a promising NFL career by way of personal stupidity. And it should also be noted that all accounts of the story say that the fact that he was a professional football player did not, in fact, weigh into the decision-making by the jury. Anyway, happier news, at least from most NBA fans, not for me because I'm a Thunder fan, but the NBA playoffs are upon us.
Oh, so the Thunder were the team left out.
Yeah, in the end, they were still tied, record-wise, with the Pelicans, but the Pelicans had the head-to-head tiebreaker. So, Pelicans are the 8th seed, Thunder are out. People are saying Scott Brooks is on the hot seat. And Kevin Durant's kind of a little miffed because let's face it, this season was really, really tough for him and not really his fault.
They're also probably one of the toughest conferences probably ever.
And I know I've harped on this before. He's had a lot of trouble with the media this season because last season, they were all high on him because MVP candidate, and this year they've been thrashing the Thunder because they ever so slightly underperformed in the toughest conference in the National Basketball Association.
Well, there's only 2 conferences, but I'm saying this is probably the toughest that the Western Conference has ever been.
Yeah, considering that both of the teams in the 8th seed were well over 500 in the end.
Yes.
As opposed to the most of the bottom half of the East being under 500.
It's the
bottom half of the East playoff teams. Yeah. Anyway, let's run through each individual matchup, and we'll give our thoughts and our predictions on who's going to win each of the playoffs. These are all 7-game series, which of course does change things. Starting with the Eastern playoffs, because that's the way it's set up on ESPN.com for whatever weird reason. The number 1 seed in the East, the Atlanta Hawks, versus the Brooklyn Nets, the number 8 seed. Now, in order to get into the number 8 seed, the Brooklyn Nets did get really hot toward the end of the season, but Atlanta Hawks, ever since the season began, they've really not ever been cold. I mean, they've pretty much had either the best or the second best record in the NBA for most of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see the Nets getting through the Hawks on this one. I got the Hawks in 5.
I'm gonna go a little bold here. I'm gonna go Hawks sweep.
I'm going Hawks in 5 because I think that the Nets get one in Brooklyn. Sorry, I still remember when they were the New Jersey Nets.
Yeah. The first game that would be in Brooklyn would be the game 3.
Yes.
On Saturday the 25th.
Yeah.
Next one, number 2 Cavaliers at number 7 Celtics. Celtics have not really had that great of a year this year. I mean, obviously they made it into the playoffs, so it's not a horrible year, but it's definitely been below Boston's expectations, however ungodly high you may sometimes think those expectations are. However, I must grudgingly give my respect to the Cavaliers, even though I freaking hate LeBron James, because they have had, there were some points in the year that looked really, really, really scary, and there were some questions about chemistry between particularly LeBron James and Kevin Love, and sometimes LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, but whatever alleged chemistry issues that there may be, they have managed to work through them and lock up a solid number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to give this one to the Cavaliers in 5.
I'm going Cavs in. Yeah, I'm going Cavs in 5 as well.
Yeah, Celtics may be able to sneak one out, but not any more than that. Number 3 seed in the East, Chicago Bulls and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bulls have actually done pretty well for themselves, considering that most of the year they were out. What is widely considered their best player with Derrick Rose, but he is back in, and while I haven't heard anything about him blowing people away with his return, he's at least not subtracted from a Bulls team that managed to chug along pretty nicely without him. So this is going to be the tighter series out of these so far. I'm going to give it to the Bulls in 7. I think this one's going to be a 7-gamer.
I'm looking at it. I'm thinking. I honestly think that Chicago's got this one. Honestly, I'm gonna go Bulls in 6.
Yeah. Well, I will go Bulls in 7 with the caveat that if Derrick Rose does have a game where he just completely goes off, it will be over in 6. The 4-5 matchup, Raptors versus Wizards. I've been hearing, I really haven't been, admittedly, I don't watch a lot of NBA, but I have grown kind of some respect for John Wall out there in Wizards land. And let's face it, Washington, D.C. needs a team that actually wins stuff. And not the Nationals, because really, I don't give a fuck about baseball. I think this one's actually going to be the one where the lower seed's going to take it. I'm going to go Wizards in 6.
Oh wow! So you're going with the road team too. I was gonna say I was gonna go with the Wizards in 6 as well. I think that the Wizards will win it in Washington.
All right, and now for the beatdown section, the bracket of death, as it were.
Yeah.
Overall, number 1 seed Golden State Warriors versus the hard-fought number 8 Pelicans. To be fair, the Pelicans did fight really, really hard to get into that 8th seed, and really, it just took a few key losses down the stretch from the Thunder to get them that. And of course, the head-to-head that they had against the Thunder really, really helped them get into the playoffs as well. I think they might give the Warriors a little bit of trouble, but as has been previously established on at least 2 occasions on this podcast, Steph Curry is a Paul Heyman guy. So it'll be eat, sleep, beat the Pelicans. Warriors in 5.
I'm gonna go Warriors in 5 as well. I think New Orleans gets one in New Orleans, probably Game 4, just to save themselves from a sweep, and that's about as much gas as they're gonna get.
Yeah, Anthony Davis is a pretty good player in his own right, so if the Pelicans do manage to take one, it's going to be off of a big game from him. Rockets versus the Mavericks. They're 2 versus 7, respectively. Of course, these are 2 teams that are pretty much perennially in the Western Conference playoffs. And mad respect to Mark Cuban for managing to build the Mavericks into a team that, while they may not always go really deep into the playoffs, they definitely do show up, and they play hard once they get there.
They did win a championship, though, so that's got to count for something.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Cubes, who really makes so much money that it's a wonder his nickname isn't Tesseracts. Unfortunately for him, the Rockets have James Harden, who for the longest part was a co-MVP candidate with Stephen Curry. This one is going to, again, be a 5-game series, possibly a 6-game series, but I'm going to primarily stick with 5 just for the sake of the pick, and I am taking the Rockets.
I am gonna go with the Rockets in 7. I think this looks like a battle between two players with styles that they just kind of match with each other. So I think they mesh well against each other. So I'm gonna go with. I think it's gonna be a long, drawn out series. So I'm going with Rockets in 7. Actually,
I hate to feel like I'm underselling Dirk Nowitzki, but I just really think that the Rockets with Harden are really on a different level. Clippers versus Spurs. This one's going to be the really, really interesting one because you got the defending champions at the 6th seed versus one of the young, powerful teams. If I pick against the Spurs, I am going to feel very, very, very terrible. I know, because they've been in this situation before. They've been the lower seed before, and they've won a championship.
Yes.
So I cannot, in any conscience, pick against the Spurs. I do think this is going to be a really good series. As with the Eastern 3-6 matchup, I think this one's going to be a 7-gamer. And I think I'm going to pick Duncan and company to pull it out. Although I will say I will not be sad if the Clippers do in fact win, because, well, the Spurs can't stay on top forever, even with Ginobili and Duncan and Parker and
but
Kawhi Leonard.
They keep rotating these guys in and out over and over and over, year in, year out. They've actually been doing this since the early 2000s, and that's what makes them so because they're so well organized. That's why the Spurs are so good at what they do, and they have stayed the most consistently good NBA team.
Some people out there think they're boring, and the finals that they've been in have had a little bit of a slump in the ratings as opposed to more flashier finals matchups, and that's actually a shame because the Spurs play really, really solid basketball. They may not be the brightest or the flashiest team on the court, but they're really, really smart, from the coach, Popovich, on down to the very last bench player.
And for those who are wondering where their old rivals, the Los Angeles Lakers, are, you can find them on the bottom of the Western Conference standings.
In fact, yeah, they managed to get their franchise worst 61st loss right at the end of the season.
Ouch. So yeah, I'm gonna go. So yeah, that's the reason why there's actually been an ESPN article on it called "The Spurs Way," and it explains how the Spurs go about trying to pass the torch from one player to another, to another, to another, and they're getting ready to probably do that again. I definitely see that the Spurs stay consistent, and it's very difficult to bet against the Spurs. I think the Spurs pull it off in 6.
Yeah, because when Duncan came in and they managed to get him as the number 1 overall pick, if I remember correctly, they had him paired with David Robinson.
Yeah,
and had David Robinson wasn't necessarily at the twilight of his career then, but it was pretty late in his career, and Tim Duncan, brand new kid coming in,
yeah,
and they won a championship together, and then they had brought in Ginobili and Tony Parker, and they won more championships with them, and now it looks like Kawhi Leonard's the one that's stepping up.
Yeah. But it just goes to show you how good the Spurs are compared to other teams. All these flashier teams that people like to watch, like the Lakers and the Heat. Well, where are they now, and where are the Spurs? Yeah, sure, the Spurs are a 6 seed, but they've been in the playoffs every single year since, I think, 2000.
And like I said, even when they're a low seed, you can't count them out, because once they get into playoff mode, sometimes they're hard to stop.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they've had a few first round exits, but I do know that they have like a very high record, very high win streak of first round matches.
Yeah.
Not so much second round though.
Yeah. And the last of the Western Conference matchups: Portland Trailblazers, Memphis Grizzlies.
I know zilch about this. I know zilch about this one. I'm gonna flip a coin.
So am I. I have my Xerneas Pokemon coin from the Pokemon trading card game.
And I'm using a digital coin.
Xerneas will be Portland, and the Pokeball will be Memphis.
The head will be Portland, and the ass will be Memphis.
I got Memphis.
I got Portland.
So this will be our head-to-head. And as for how many games it is, well...
7. Sorry.
Actually, in the sake of this one being really, really random, I am, in fact, going to go on to random.org and
oh, jeez.
Do that.
No, I'm not doing that. I think this will be way too close. 4 or 5 games. Yeah, 7.
And random.org says 6. So.
All right.
So you got
Memphis to win in Portland. Well, I got Portland to win in Memphis. So.
Yeah, you got you got Portland in 7. I got Memphis in 6. All from the forces of the universe. So one of us will be right. One of us will be wrong. And as far as games go, who knows? We'll probably both be wrong.
Memphis sweeps.
At least I'd be half right then. All right. Moving on to WWE news. We're going to start with the most recent episode of NXT. Before we get into the part where I gush over a certain debut. Very important thing, the main event match from this was Sami Zayn versus Rhino. I believe it was for number 1 contendership, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, who won that one? Because I for some reason, the WWE Network went out on me for a little bit, and I had to run to work, so who won that one?
Sami Zayn.
Oh, okay.
Sami Zayn. And it was a really great match between the two as well. Yeah, Sammy and Rhino worked really, really well together. And honestly, seeing Rhino in NXT is a really, really good thing because, lest we forget, this boy was the last ECW champion. And he's actually been TNA heavyweight champion, although he probably would like to forget that personally.
Yeah.
So, having him back in NXT and having the likes of Sami Zayn go over him is actually a really, really good thing because, I mean, as if Sami Zayn didn't need, Sami Zayn probably didn't need the bump from Rhino, but the fact that he got it nonetheless is a really, really good thing for his career.
Yeah.
And, of course, the match looked really, really great, which after, like, 3 straight weeks of squashes from Rhino, to have a good long match with one of the top tier wrestlers on the card was really just something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a continuation of the Blake and Murphy and Realist Guys in the Room side plot during a match that that Enzo Amore and Big Cass had. Blake and Murphy came over to surprise Carmella with flowers, and this time for once she actually did not look repulsed. She actually was kind of acting like, oh, kind of sweet. Which, yeah, so
I'm just naming them Team Dubstep. Team Skrillex. Those are like, seriously, what kind of music did they give these guys?
Yeah, like I said, maybe I'd like Blake. Maybe I'd like Blake and Murphy more if they were using Lindsey Sterling.
And maybe I'd like them more if they just didn't feel like 2 guys just being mashed together.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the unfortunate reality for even in NXT. Some of the some of the tag teams that they have there. But of course, the second biggest thing to the main event was the final debut of Dana Brooke.
Okay, I'm turning the mic off.
Hold on now. I am going to actually give fair commentary on this, David. Okay. She did, of course, she looks good physically. It was actually a pretty good match against Resident Diva punching bag Blue Pants, who I still cannot understand why she's a thing. There were some rough spots. Some of her punches didn't really look right to me, but she did have some innovative moves in her arsenal, including one point where she actually did a handstand and choked out Blue Pants against a turnbuckle. Kind of akin to what Stacy Keibler once did with her using a leg choke at the turnbuckle, but again, with a handstand involved. And her finisher, really interesting move, kind of an F5 setup into a sit-out powerbomb. So, not a perfect first outing, but again, it is her first match. Girl has nowhere to go but up. And apparently she is being brought out as kind of a killer heel in the NXT Divas division.
Yeah, she's looking like the ground and pound heel diva type. I'm gonna give this much. There's one really impressive move she does where she hangs upside down in the turnbuckle and chokes her opponent out with.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Yeah, and that one is like, I don't know. I like that one, but overall, I think that I felt a little underwhelmed.
Yeah, like I said, there definitely were some rough spots, but she can improve ring wise. You know, it's by there. The good there does seem to give hope that the bad will improve. She's not by any means NXT Women's Championship ready yet, but she'll get there.
Well, she started, so I wouldn't expect it.
But I mean, in ring wise, you know, she's a long way from, you know, facing off against, say, Charlotte or Sasha, or you know, or Alexa Bliss, but she will improve in time. At least I hope so. I choose to be optimistic. Of course, a lot of that could be blind loyalty.
Yes, it is. Anyway.
WWE did their show tapings for Raw and SmackDown in England. And during the SmackDown tapings, well, there were a couple idiots. And in fact, there actually will be video from the link that we'll put in the show notes for you. A troll group who like to pull pranks at wrestling matches rushed the ring during the SmackDown tapings, did rock bottoms on each other before the tag team main event between the Brass Ring Club and John Cena and Daniel Bryan. Yeah, so they like to do pranks like that and then upload the videos to YouTube. See, the thing with this is, these guys are dopes. These guys are absolute idiots. For one thing, doing wrestling moves like that without any kind of training or whatever, you can hurt yourself. There's a reason why they say on their DVDs, and whenever they have a chance to, why they say, do not do this at home. Because, yeah, you can get yourself hurt. Aside from that, there's a very, doing stuff like this might possibly get WWE to be less inclined to do live shows in your area. Or I'd certainly be not inclined to do, like, pay-per-view events, because if something like that happens on a pay-per-view event, it's not getting edited out while the pay-per-view goes.
Yep.
It's going to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they might be able to edit it out in replays, but you know, because WWE is going to look at crowds in London now and wonder, okay, is there going to be this dumbass trying to do that prank again? Although I do have to give these assholes props for one thing. Thanks for beating yourselves up so the wrestlers didn't have to do it. Because in the old school days, or even as late as like the Attitude or Ruthless Aggression era, if you did some shit like that, you could expect to get stiffed by one of the competitors.
Ooh.
And that's before the security team gets to you. Because, you know, it's a part of protecting the craft, you know. It's a safety issue, you know. You have no idea if those fans rushing the ring are really there to do something to themselves, like this, or if they're going to try to attack one of the wrestlers. So, it's like that story some weeks back that we had from Kansas State, where they had people rushing the court and people very nearly got injured because there wasn't enough security there to get people off the floor in time. It can cause issues, and the WWE does not have an off season. So if somebody gets injured and misses time, it can hurt their momentum. And it can hurt the momentum of builds toward pay-per-views. It can hurt building feuds. You know, they can call audibles to cover some of this stuff, but sometimes those audibles don't work anywhere near as well as what they were trying to set up. So, if you look at stuff like this, what you should rightfully do is say, my God, these people are idiots. And do not emulate these people. If you are ever inclined to do something like this, please do not ever go to a wrestling event. For the sake of the people who are there to watch the actual damn show, please do not go. Anyway, finally, a little bit of lighter news. While also in London, a couple of WWE superstars got to tour the Doctor Who set in Cardiff, Wales. Said WWE superstars, the currently out with injury Paige, who, of course, she's British, so of course that makes sense. And some of you who don't know how this guy is off the screen might be shocked by this. Kane.
Yeah, it didn't shock me very much. But...
yeah, Glenn Jacobs is a Whovian. Who knew?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that you would know about the guy who plays Kane, Glenn Jacobs, that would actually shock you a lot. He's actually, I believe, a lecturer for economics in some university. I forgot which one. Wonder if he's still doing that.
Yeah, and he's actually a really, really smart person in his own right. He is a very keen political mind. You know, he is a more conservative person, but honestly, if Glenn Jacobs were to run for president, even accounting... well, actually, I don't think Glenn Jacobs would ever run for president because, let's face it, his opponents would bring up the Kane shit. All the dumb stuff that Kane has done, including Katie Vick, which was Triple H and not Kane, but he was a part of that angle. So, anyway, that's our sports section for this week. So, up next, for the oldest established permanent floating segment, we've got an interview for you. We're here with Alex Cohen, one of the contenders in the Major League Pokemon Elite Four series. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing pretty good. All right, let's start out with telling us how you got started with Pokemon.
Um, I've been playing Pokemon basically all my life, but competitive wise, early Gen 5, like that's when I really started to get into competitive and I just loved it, to be honest with you.
All right, and how did you get started with Major League Pokemon specifically?
Ah, I think I saw it advertised and the first, it was like the second league group I've ever sort of been in, like, and because I don't really, to be honest, I don't do league groups that often, and I saw the first league group like when I very first started, and since then I just didn't play anymore. And then I joined the Major League Pokemon. And I fucking loved it. And that was basically it.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your current team? Of course, if there are some things you don't want to reveal for competitive edge or something, go ahead.
Well, when you mean current team, do you mean as in like what I'm using in the group or just in general?
Well, yeah, what you're using in the group. Yeah, talk to us about the team you've got running.
Well, at the moment I'm running Mega Altaria, Mega Sizzle, Rhyperior, Gengar, Goodra, Raikou, Tentacruel, and Skarmory, and Talonflame. That's my 10 I picked.
Yeah. Why don't you go into a little more detail on some of those? What kind of movesets you got running?
Well, Raikou I picked as my legend just simply because I love Raikou and because its moveset is usually quite similar, but the hidden power I can change depending on what I'm going to face. Like when I played Dylan the other day, I specifically brought my hidden power Fire just because I knew he'd bring Ferrothorn, and it actually paid off for me quite a lot, like because it killed it. And then Goodra is kind of a weird set. I have obviously like the usual Assault Vest one, but I have my own set, and it's called Mr. Sticky, and it has. It's a great name.
Yeah, I know. By the way, for the new listeners who are wondering, Alex Cohen is one of our more unique battlers over at Major League Pokemon, to say the least.
How do you decide to come up with the names for your Pokemon?
Don't ask.
I mean, Goodra. That's kind of somewhat obvious, but
kind of changes really. Depends what I'm in the mood for. Like, I have an Alakazam called Mr. Wilson because he's got a moustache. I used to have this teacher called Mr. Wilson. He had a moustache. That's like,
nice.
I thought that was really cool.
Reference.
For me, I thought that was quite clever. Like,
yeah.
I have I don't know. I don't nickname like everything, but sometimes I'm just feeling in the mood for nickname, and I just nickname things. Like, don't know. I'm not even gonna tell you some of them. But
now, last time you were this close to the championship, you won the Holiday Grand Prix back in December. That was over me in the finals. Thanks a lot. You then challenged Alex Carbo. How about you describe your battle with Alex Carbo?
That was literally one of the most. It was best of 3, and I've literally never been that annoyed at a best of 3. Because the first game, from what I remember, I would have won it, but there was like, I think I got critted, or I can't remember if I got critted or flinched or just something. I just remember something like that happened. Like, I got hacked at the like very late game, and it cost me so much. And yeah, and then the second game, I think I won the second game, and then the last game was just really close. So I think that's why recently I've decided I want to go back after it, because
yeah, I believe it was one of our closest championship. It was the closest championship battle that we have ever had in Major League Pokemon, and I think that pretty much cemented your spot as the number 2 trainer in the power rankings for quite some time now.
Yeah, it was so close. It was so annoying.
But you do want to win the championship, I know.
Yeah, I'm going after it now.
Aside, of course, from your battle with Alex Carbo, what would be your favorite battle that you've had so far in Major League Pokemon?
Oh, that's a good question. I've had a lot of games. Quite a few good ones of you, David.
Yeah, I actually am one of the few lucky enough to say I own a victory over Alex Cohen in Major League Pokemon, even if he does consider it a fluke.
It was a really close game.
Yes.
We've had some good games. We have had some good games. I think.
Though there was one time you 6-0'd me, so I mean.
I try. I don't know. I think I've had a few good games with Matt. Me and Matt play quite a lot.
Yeah, Matthew Rivera.
Yeah, he's got a lot better since I first started. Like, he's really good now.
Yeah, he's definitely. I would put him as probably one of our most improved battlers.
Yeah, definitely along with Justin.
Justin Salidi was actually. I think Justin Salidi was pretty good from the start. I'll be honest with you.
He's always been good, but I think recently he's like really tried to get better, and it shows.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he's gotten to a point now where he's actually rivaling me again.
I've had a few good games with. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I had a good game with Petra for the badge a while ago, and it was a 6-0 because Sizzle.
Bullet punch.
Just +6 bullet punch.
I love bullet punch.
It's so good.
So, aside from running through the Elite Four series and hopefully another rematch with Alex Carbo, what else do you plan to do in the future in Major League Pokemon?
Well, I'm basically trying to win every tournament I'm in, and I think if I can achieve that, I'm satisfied. Like, and there's some people that I feel like I can be like genuinely good friends with. Like, I feel like I get on with everyone there quite well. So if I can battle them like free for alls and stuff, and just get better in general, I think I'm happy with what I'm doing.
And of course, this wouldn't be a Pokemon-related interview if we didn't ask this very important question: favorite legendary Pokemon and favorite non-legendary Pokemon.
Favorite legendary at the moment is Raikou. Like, just because, like, competitive wise, I think, like, it impacts what I like a lot in some sense. Like, and I think Raikou recently, I didn't ever use it that much, and now I've been using it so much, and I've just come to love it.
Raikou fits you pretty well as that balanced trainer. I'll be really honest with you. I think that as far as legendaries go, everyone in the group tends to use a favorite legendary. It's not like everyone wants to use Mega Metagross, or everyone wants to use whatever strongest legend there is. For example, my favorite legend right now is Meloetta, and a lot of people would frown on that, but Meloetta fits me perfectly because I'm very hyper offensive, and Meloetta fits that hyper offensive drive.
Yeah, I like Meloetta a lot. It's quite diverse.
And on that note, I have to kind of wonder what my favorite being Lugia, specifically Shadow Lugia from XD, because that's just a fantastic Pokemon design there. That could have been Lugia's original design, and I would have been freaking ecstatic.
Also, because it's strong against everything.
That's not why I like it.
And favorite non-legendary, Alex?
It has to be Ledian, 100%. It's kind of a weird choice, I know, because like obviously it's not great competitively, but Ever since I first started playing Pokemon and I saw a lady, it just something about it that I'll just always love about it. And there's only ever been one way I've been able to use it competitively, and it's a little bit gimmicky, but it makes me love it even more.
Hey, you know what? I'm actually right now using Ladybug in the Pokemon Crystal Kaizo Let's Play. I'm probably going to be keeping it.
Yeah, and on that same note, have you ever had any experience with any Pokemon ROM hacks or fan
Um,
games?
I played Snakewood quite a lot, and I used to play quite a lot of them. I used to have them like a lot on my phone, but I haven't played any in a little while. I feel like I need to. Snakewood's my favorite though, I think.
I always seem to have horrible luck with Pokemon ROM hacks or Pokemon ROMs in general, especially from Gen 3 late and later. They always crash on me.
Aw.
I feel you.
My Gen 3 hacks, whatever ROMs that I use, the fan-made ones, seem to work for me, so...
I remember this one time. I was playing this ROM hack that was basically a crossover between Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z. It was a ROM hack of Pokemon Red called called Pokemon Z, of course. And your first Pokemon was the fully evolved starter, Kanto starter, with one of the signature moves. I got a Charizard that had Kamehameha. I went over to do the first battle with Gary, on the way to Victory Road that really is the optional fight, and that's where that game crashed.
Oh, that's upsetting.
I have a feeling they didn't particularly do anything with that fight, and it made the hack freak out. All
That's
right,
just.
David, have you got anything else?
Yeah, coming up, as you know, this week is ML Pokemon 7, Ditto Express. It's everything you want it to be. And Alex Cohen is going to be representing the Zircon region in the group war against the Pure Battle region.
All right.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
he's proud there. What's your strategy going into that one?
I have a team that I've been using recently, and I'm pretty confident with it. Like, it's very, very hyper offensive. It uses Mega Sizzle and Banded Kyron Black, and yeah, it hits.
Yeah. So I believe that is it for me, Jeremy.
Yeah, and that's all that I've got. Alex, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you.
Hey, that's great, and hopefully we get to see you again when we start these Major League Pokemon minis.
Yeah, definitely.
I start them for the special events, and I hope that you get back to the championship match with Alex Carbo.
Thank you, man.
No problem.
And best of luck in the region war with the Pure Battle region.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right.
We'll have to.
This has been our interview with Alex Cohen for Major League Pokemon. Coming up next will be silly news and dumb tweets. Alright, time for the silly news and dumb tweets, and we'd like to start you off with a public service announcement that if you grew up or watching Pokemon or playing the games, it may have made you gay. At least according to Creflo Dollar Ministries.
Nope, still straight.
According to a, quote, study, end quote, conducted by the church, children born in the late 80s through the early 90s, quote, had their sexuality warped by Ash and his fruity friends. The study claims the Pokemon themselves are also to blame, including Bulbasaur, who apparently has the representation of a breast on its back, combined with a name that, quote, casts doubt on the natural attraction of man to the forms of the female body. What? Meanwhile, Pokemon like Weedle are phallic in appearance. Nobody tell them about the move Harden, or for that matter, String Shot. while mu is said to represent a third gender.
Then shit, you know what? He would absolutely love Excadrill.
Oh, where can we start with this?
I got it. All right. His name is Creflo Dollar. Technically, it's Dr. Creflo Dollar because I believe he has a PH divinity or something like that. But Dollar! His name is a fucking currency!
Yeah, to quote ESPN sports analyst Bomani Jones, never trust a brother named Creflo or anybody named Dollar.
Now, Creflo Dollar, Dr. Creflo Dollar, whatever the hell you want to call him, belongs to I know this from my political research way back when. He belongs to a group of Christian pastors known as prosperity gospel preachers. And these are the types of people, depending on who you ask, they can be better or worse than the fundamentalists. And I'll explain. Better in the sense that there are some of them in there that aren't as crazy, at least on the outside, as a lot of the fundamentalists who are probably hiding in underground shelters right now from Obama down in Eastern California. But they're worse in the fact that their doctrine is a lot more vicious psychologically to people, in the sense that they believe, at least from what I've been seeing, that if you are rich, that is because God has blessed you with these riches. And because of that, some will even go so far to say that they can identify who is religious and who is not, somewhat, at least in a way, by how rich they are. No, it's not 100%, but, if you are rich, and that means that you are blessed by God, and if you're poor, then that means that you have sinned against God, and you have to repent, and something is wrong with you, etc. I've actually been somewhat raised on this kind of culture. They are very image conscious. Very image conscious. And a lot of these pastors also have a tendency to try to ask for donations from other people so that they can do shit like, ask for a private jet.
Which actually Creflo Dollar has done. A private jet retailing specifically for $65 million.
Yep. And that explains a lot. Then you have, Fred Price, another guy of the Prosperity Gospel / Word of Faith groups of ministries, who, at least he's honest about it, talked about his, 13, 15 room mansion that he owns. Joel Osteen, while not as bad as the other two that are mentioned and not as blatant about it, is another one of those guys. He's more on the lighter side, I would say. There are at least a dozen I can name off the top of my head. The biggest of these guys, way back when, was this NBC documentary on Benny Hinn. And he made, at the time, $80 to $100 million in his ministry. And what these quote-unquote charities like to do is they like to give just the bare minimum or next to the bare minimum so that they can name themselves a non-profit organization, or in some cases just bypass it entirely, crunch fake numbers, and say, hey, we got 5%, even though they probably only gave like 3% or something like that. It's really one of the reasons I've come to really dislike Christianity as a whole. It's one thing I can somewhat respect fundamentalists, in the sense that they're at least in their own mind and in some particular ways following their scripture to some extent. These people are just bastardizing everything. and it gets worse, because these are the exact same people where it's almost kind of like the worst of both worlds when it comes to Christianity. Some of them are kind of a hybrid of the two, and that's where things get really dangerous. You got the type of people, and generally you've actually met one of these guys, where they have the fundamentalist doctrine of, fire and brimstone preaching. You're going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus, and you don't follow the Republican Party, and vote against abortion, and vote against gay marriage, and vote for gun rights, and vote for a libertarian type economy, a corporatist, plutocrat, libertarian mesh economy that we have currently, and you aren't 100% for everything that they believe in, and at the same time saying that, well, you're not rich, you're going to hell.
Also, I have some very, very important news for Dr. Dollar, who, by the way, his last name should also tell you who he really is worshiping. I have some very important news for him, and I believe this will be the definitive statement on this subject. It is known on this podcast and through various other venues that I am bisexual. It was not Pokemon that made me bisexual, although Will of the Johto Elite Four, Wallace from Cohen, and the Kalosian Ace Trainers are really, really darn attractive if you ask me. No, it was not them that made me bisexual, or made me realize I was bisexual, rather. It was this little anime called Genso Maden Sayuki, specifically the character Chohakai. Which, look up pictures of him, ladies, and so inclined gentlemen, because dude's rocking the Megane hotness. There is an offshoot of Bishonen for characters who are older called Biseinen, and Chohakai is definitely that. Speaking of erections, and then things that get people hot, this one was pointed out to me by David, posted on dangerousminds.net. Apparently, there's a Japanese game show called Sing What Happens, which seriously tests their male contestants' karaoke skills while giving them hand jobs while they sing. The object of the game is for the contestants to know the song by heart and not to be distracted by the hand job. They need to be able to hit the proper notes perfectly in order to win. Sometimes a hand is used, and sometimes feet are used for the sexual gratification, which we are not going to kink shame. The contestants must be able to carry a tune until they ejaculate, and this is the part where I have to shame the people who wrote this for saying, upon stiff competition indeed. Although there is a good joke here that they would like to see the contestants do a karaoke version of a song by a band called the Bad Brains, entitled Pay to Come.
And more to come. A lot more to come.
The best is yet to come.
Yes, it is. Oh, my God. Oh, anyway, Japan, what is wrong with you?
Well, they're a little freer with their sexuality in some ways than Western cultures.
You're so fucked up.
That's why games like Singing Kagura.
I know Gaijin Goomba was talking about the whole, booze versus blood thing in the earlier one, but holy shit, does Japan have to take it a little too literally?
Yeah, although if you do look at a lot of hentai manga, you will find that the actual genitals do tend to be censored more often than not. Because, yeah, they can show people doing that stuff, but outright shots of the genitals are right out. Anyway, moving on, got a couple more from you. These found off of the Huffington Post. Southwest Airlines passenger kicked off flight for poking snoring man with a pen. A woman was kicked off of a Southwest Airlines flight out of Chicago on Thursday, that would be the 16th, after she grabbed a pen and poked the man snoring next to her. The incident occurred aboard Flight 577 headed toward Boston at about 3:04 p.m., according to NBC Chicago. The woman was trying to silence her snoring seatmate and jabbed him repeatedly, Southwest spokesperson Brandy King told the station. Firefighters were called in to evaluate the man, who wasn't seriously injured, I would hope not. The flight departed shortly after the passenger was removed. The passenger in question will be accommodated on a later flight. Really? This is what we've come to? You're holding a flight and kicking people off for poking snoring people with a pen? Is that the culture we are fostering now?
Well, Japan. Well, I mean, we got, every country has different cultures. I mean, the United States is paranoid. Sweden's very relaxed, and Japan is horny. So.
Well, that would explain that one attack in the third episode of Tokyuger from their giant mech, where one of the train mechs sprung out like it was never mind. Anyway, really, we're kicking people off of a flight for poking a snoring man with a pen. She was trying to wake him up because he was snoring. I doubt she was even, like trying to, basically stab him with her pen. I think she was just trying to go, hey, wake up, dude. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. And she got kicked off of the flight for that. Ladies and gentlemen, post 9/11 America. Post-Boston Marathon bombing America.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Like I said, America's paranoid and Japan is horny. What else is new?
I'm having a hard time getting over it. So let me get... I mean, what if she was trying to check on him to make sure he was okay? I mean, maybe she's like, God, does this guy have sleep apnea or something? Maybe she was trying to wake him up to make sure he was still alive. Oh, God. Anyway, here's our last silly story for tonight. And for those of you who are fans of What the Fuck Is Wrong With You, you will know from that show that many, many times the state of Florida has made an appearance. And it's made an appearance here today. Tampa, to be precise. School for strippers closes due to noise complaints. I'm going to let that headline sink in for a little bit. Okay, now I'll read the story.
Obviously, the person who filed the complaint was a woman.
Well, we'll see. If not for the loud parties, the owner of a $2 million mansion on Florida's Gulf Coast might have continued operating a training school for strippers next door to an exclusive gated community. The Tampa Tribune reports the all-night liquor-fueled celebrations, complete with booming stereos and screaming women, drew complaints from neighbors. The mansion's owner and manager were hit with code violations. Sean Gray, a manager at the mansion for rent, was also accused by the sheriff's office of violating the city's noise ordinance, which is a misdemeanor. On Monday, a circuit judge dismissed the charge. On Thursday, representatives from code enforcement and the sheriff's office will meet with County Commissioner Kevin Beckner, so they would have already done this by now, to discuss whether further action is necessary. Quote, the Hillsborough Sheriff's Deputy Phil Acaba, who investigated the events at the mansion, if they had flown under the radar, they'd still be in business. The noise was the issue that brought their downfall. The owner of the school billed it as an agency for, quote, top-earning exotic dancers and models. I would like to pause a moment to say that there is absolutely nothing wrong with being an exotic dancer. If that is how you choose to make your money, if this is what gives you power and this is something you love to do, by all means, go for it. And we will not shame you for your decision. And in fact, well, David might not, but if I had the money and had the capability, I might support you in your endeavor. Out of, wanting you to have a good life.
Me, I have to worry about myself, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, the mansion is owned by Pink Tati LLC. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But the principal owner is Canadian millionaire Gordon Lowndes. In an interview Monday, Lowndes told the newspaper he had ceased all commercial activity at the 12,000 square foot house, shutting down its modeling school for exotic dancers. As Lowndes said, "We are aware of what we are allowed to do and not do. We are conforming with all the zoning requirements." Lowndes bought the mansion in April of 2013 for $2 million, because real estate in Florida is through the fucking roof. He said that he and some partners planned to film a reality show there about the day-to-day lives of strippers. He remodeled the mansion in lush Egyptian-themed decor and advertised it as Pharaoh's Palace. Internet ads said the mansion was available for rent to, quote, event planners, professional photographers, music video producers, and television and film producers. Code enforcement has issued 5 citations against the property, some for holding special events in an agricultural/residential zone, and some for operating special events without conditional use approval. A hearing on the violations is scheduled for April the 24th. And by the way, the modeling agency in question, owned and run by Gray and Nicholas World, Pharaoh's Daughters Modeling Agency, which provides, quote, coaching and ongoing employment to promising young strippers. Yeah, like I said, we're not gonna shame you for that choice. We are, however, going to shame the people in charge of you for not keeping it on the DL. And see, here's another example of American education getting the shaft. No pun intended. They're trying to put some well-educated women into the workforce, and they violated the codes. And anyway, to the girls who are affected by this, in all seriousness, best of luck to you in your future endeavors. I hope you are able to find gainful employment. I hope you have a happy life.
Well,
anyway, let's follow up the silly with the dumb. David, bring the pain.
Alrighty. Well, this first one, I'm going to save this one for next week. Starting next week, by the way, I'm going to try to put up some pictures instead of just this gigantic casual mode logo that we have here. We're going to have up a little board on YouTube so that way you can take a look at some of the visuals that we're looking at. So that's for next week. Anyways, first one. I hate people with bad hygienes. HIGHJEANS. Go take a shower.
Clearly, he was not a fan of Family Matters back in the day.
Apparently not, no. And obviously, he's a fan of low jeans. I'm a fan of low jeans too, my friend.
Either that, or he's just not a fan of girls who like to smoke weed.
This really,
or French men who like to smoke weed, for that matter.
This couple, I think, needs some serious relationship counseling. I let my girl handcuff me to the bed, thinking we about to do some freaky shit. Bitch went through my phone. There's some trust issues there that need to be dealt with.
Yeah, clearly they're not really doing some good communication on what they like in their intimate interactions there. Needs to be a little more communication going on there.
2 for 1. 2 for 1. They haven't even cut the aux, AUX cord, and you taking pictures, shaking my head, replying to a guy saying my baby cousin is finally here. The aux cord, AUX.
So somebody's disconnecting their satellite radio from their car?
And the other guy, another tweeter responds, you mean the in-bill uncle cord? INBILLUNCLE.
You know, for all the flack that I give autocorrect sometimes I don't think people use it enough.
Yeah.
I think people turn off autocorrect because of all the embarrassing misspellings and such that you see, but they really need to have it turned on.
And finally, a really bad misspelled news story. 17-year-old girl stuck by lightning while masturbating. Wow, that's gotta hurt. I don't think she's ever gonna have sex again.
No. She wasn't. It wasn't that she got fucked by an electrical discharge from the clouds. It's that a former American gladiator had sex with her. Lesbian sex, actually, if I remember correctly. Lesbian was one of the female gladiators. Or Lightning, rather, was one of the female gladiators. In fact, yeah, she was. So, no, it wasn't that she got struck by a bolt from the heavens. It's that she had she had lesbian sex. Which, if she's into that, good on her. I won't even ask to watch because that would be creepy.
Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah, that's it for the show. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know about all the wonderful places that you can interact with us. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Sound off on any of the various different things that we've ranted about today. Give us your opinions. We'd love to hear from you. David, if you would, give them to them.
Yep, you can catch us and you can get all of our social links. One site, casualmodepodcast.com. That is www.casualmodepodcast.com. Other places that you can check us out at: Facebook, facebook.com/casualmodepodcast. Twitter, I'm at 0CHRapoya.
I'm at Shadowbird712.
Tumblr, casualmodepodcast.tumblr.com. SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/casualmode. FNX Network at fnx.network. And starting next week, we're going to have a visual board. And I know I haven't gotten that soundboard fixed quite yet, but we are going to have a visual board. So,
don't forget, not only can you subscribe to us on YouTube and get everything as it's posted, you can also subscribe to us on iTunes and get all the audio files as soon as they're posted.
Yep.
So until next time, I'm Jeremy.
I'm David.
Later, y'all.
Bye.